Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Founders Fire podcast. I'm Eric Beck, and excited to welcome you to 2025. Come on, today is January 1st, a brand new year, and I'm excited for this topic today, financial escape velocity, because it really holds some secrets for you guys. I think that are really gonna help transform not only your approach to money, but value creation, and frankly, how you live in peace. So much of us spend our time working to live, and really we can transform that to something quite powerful and quite different. So our theme here at Founders Fire is about getting free. It's about rekindling that fire that's inside of you. If you have not launched your business, you need to think about it. There may be something very, very important that you have to bring to the world, to the community that you live in, to the market that you might be aimed at, that is truly unique. If you haven't heard my TEDx talk on reaching your creative maximum, it's one of my favorites. I think that is the new wave of the future for all of us. I think jobs will eventually be gone. I think using humans as machines, which we have done for thousands of years, is kind of a terrible idea. So hopefully that's not overly shocking to you, but the reality is that using a person to function as a machine does not call on their highest and their best, what I would call their creative maximum. And that's a way we can transform our economy and our world. Part of that is about financial escape velocity. So I'm going to dive into kind of our headlines for today. First thing is going to be Blake and Rockefeller duel over what the meaning of enough is. Second big idea, what is financial escape velocity? We're going to go into details on that. Third big idea, closed circle cash flow and lotteries. That section is actually based on one of our modules in our coaching program. Again, if you're interested in getting coached, definitely head over to foundersfire.com. We are thrilled to get a lot of new entrepreneurs rolling in 2025, so hopefully you're one of them. Big idea number 4, happiness is a myth. Midday walks are reality. So we're going to dive in. So get your pencil sharpened. I mean that for real, because I'm a huge proponent of learning and implementing. So don't just let this be kind of entertaining. Taking your time to hear this is magnified when you take your time to implement. So let's start with those quotes. Blake and Rockefeller, they're dueling over this concept of enough. John D. Rockefeller's answer was just a little bit more. How much is enough? Just a little bit more. William Blake taking the other side in this octagon of throwdown, ultimate fighting style. His comment was, you never know what is enough unless you know what is more than enough. Oh, a little jujitsu there. Let me read that again. I think Rockefeller's is pretty much obvious, but let's go to William Blake again. You never know what is enough unless you know what is more than enough. That's an interesting way to define it, to say what's over the top, what's taking maybe this situation too far. Mark Twain, of course, comes in with his snappy retort, too much is just enough. And then kind of helping out William Blake, Steve Sandusky says, if you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. So we kind of have Mark Twain and Rockefeller on the side of basically there's never enough, and William Blake and Steve Sandusky on the side of understanding what is enough is the key. Well, I'm going to side, no surprise, with William Blake and Steve Sandusky. If you know what enough is, you have achieved a huge part of freedom. Now, having said that, does that mean we don't need money or money's not important or we can somehow just, live off love? No, not at all. We do need money. And I don't mean need as in the existential side of we got to get food and shelter and that. Of course, that's true in many cases. I mean, we need it because it is the primary tool for mapping the heart of humans. The Bible says that where your treasure is, your heart will be there also. So I think the highest understanding of the function of money in society is to understand what's in people's hearts. If we lost that tool, then we would lose a deep and powerful insight into what people value. Now, I also know that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So I get that. So I'm not talking about loving money as our source of security or giving our lives over just to get money. I'm not talking about that. Money can be used in very deleterious and destructive ways. What I'm talking about is using money in a righteous way, and in fact, transforming the use of money by transforming parts, if not all, of our money system. You guys who are in the United States, you may know that we have a central bank, and that central bank issues money to our government that then goes into circulation. So that central bank, of course, is called the Federal Reserve, and most of you probably by now know that it's about as federal as Federal Express. It is not part of our government. It is a separate entity. It is its own thing, and that should be concerning because the Revolutionary War back in the day was fought in part about getting free from the Central Bank of England. What's so bad about central banks, you say? Well, the first thing is that when they issue currency, it's already debt. So when they print $1, you owe $1.10. So you are perpetually enslaved to a system. And if you think about this idea of slavery, we've talked a lot about time debt, financial debt, all kinds of debt is a procurement of your future. And that is something that we never want to give up. We never want to give the future. We need to, I would say freedom is actually maintaining some degree of decision-making or autonomy as it relates to our futures. Ultimately, we have to understand that our money system is broken. The design of our money system is to keep everyone in debt. So that's why credit cards were invented. There are usury laws that are supposed to protect against exorbitant, interest rates, so that you don't get buried in debt and stuck. However, I still see these offers come across my desk pretty regularly for credit cards offering a wonderful low APR of 0% interest for the first 12 billing cycles, and then 26%, 17 to 26%, depending on your credit score. That's usury. If you want to actually look at how all that functions, take a look at where those credit card companies are headquartered. It's not New York. You think, oh yeah, it's New York, right? It's not. Look up the state that most credit card companies are headquartered in, and then ask yourself, why is it that state? So that's a little research assignment for some of you eager beavers out there who want to understand really what's going on with our money system and why. So we know that money is necessary for the existential side, but also for the tool of transformation and understanding motivation. However, the system that produces our money today is wildly corrupt. It is not interested in your freedom. It is interested in constant and consistent and overwhelming spending. So anything to keep everybody spending, that's what we've got to do. Well, how are we ever going to get to financial escape velocity if we're in this money trap? If we're in this constant spending, unending debt-driven consumption model? Oh, we're going to talk about that. So first of all, let's define financial escape velocity. It sounds pretty good. I mean, financial, okay, it's money. Escape, okay, cool, getting out of some sort of a trap or something. Velocity, that sounds like speed. That sounds like fast. That sounds awesome. Well, here's the flow that can help you kind of think through the ideas, okay? And we start off in a work to live model. If I don't work, I'm not going to live. That is generally a trading time and our health, because let's be honest, we're a very sick nation, right? We have all kinds of diseases today in proportion that we did not have 50 years ago. Trading time, trading health for money is that first phase to think about. Okay, so that's paycheck to paycheck. I am working to live. Okay, if we add a little bit of escape velocity, we might, and I want to encourage everybody to consider this, start our own business. That is way harder than it sounds, and it's not just a side hustle or becoming a boss babe or a whatever empire builder. It's not that, okay? But understanding that if we can move from trading our time and health for money to trading value for money, Now we move into a phase I call live to work. So we were working to live, probably doing somebody else's, bidding for somebody else's company, someone else's vision. Now we've taken some ownership of that and said, hey, what's my vision? What do I want to create in this world? And when you start to do that, you no longer feel like you are working to live. You feel like you're living to work. You wake up early and you are ready to go. I woke up this morning, January 1st, ready to go, excited about 2025. That generally doesn't happen when we are working to live, when we are just trading time for money. So that second phase, trading value for money, means that I have now taken ownership of value creation. This can be by being an entrepreneur and starting your own business. It can be by being an intrapreneur and creating value and new ways to create value inside of another company. Now, that's more rare, and I'll tell you why. Most companies are not set up for you to create value. They're set up for you to do what they tell you to do. In other words, they built the system. You need to operate the system. And building new systems is frankly a liability. Most companies don't have the forward-thinking, open-minded approach to collaboration that would allow for that. Some do. And I've had the great fortune to work with a handful of companies that do function like this, and they're amazing. So trading value for money. Let's move to that third level then, owning your source. So if you start to produce value and people give you money for the value you produce, you're a step closer to financial escape velocity. But ultimately, you need to use that money for something really important. What is that? Well, of course, it's the stock market. I'm kidding. I don't really like the stock market for the same reason that I was talking about earlier with the debt-driven consumption system that we've inherited. It's not really legit, I think is the word. You see, most companies' value in the stock market isn't based on their earnings or their profit or where the company is going to go. It's based on people's opinions of those things, as well as a whole host of other things. And then a lot of what affects the stock market you never even hear about. The derivatives market, the different financial instruments where people are effectively just betting on bets. And then those bets can be bet upon. If you want to learn this, you're probably not going to feel great. But if you want to learn this, go and find the movie The Big Short. Watch it. Be sobered. Learn. Open your eyes. It's very important that you see what's really going on. So again, do I think all stocks are bad or it's like an immoral thing to do to buy stocks or invest in the stock market? No, I just don't think it's very smart. Why would you take your hard-earned money and invest it in a company you know nothing about in an industry you probably don't know anything about beyond being a consumer and put your money there? I wouldn't do that. And I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm just telling you what I would do. I would invest in a company that I know a lot about. What company do you know a lot about? The one you're going to start or the one you're running right now. Invest in that. Yeah, but it's hard and, all that. And that's just as a lack of systems, because you guys know our little theme around here is there's no problem in business. There's no problems in business. Not even one. There's only missing or broken systems. Fix those systems. Invest in that. Now you'll start to see an ROI that I think will make you happy. So when we talk about financial escape velocity, we're talking about then getting to that third level of owning your source, meaning I've grown my business. That money is throwing off profit. You could go put that profit into stocks like we were talking about, but I think a much better approach would be to consider where your food comes from, your safety, land, and your chosen community. What are you talking about? Well, if Safeway or Kroger shuts down, what will you do for food? Oh my gosh, that'd be terrible. I don't know. Oh my gosh, that's awful. Surely the government would never let that happen. And, that somebody else will take care of me. That is not financial escape velocity. That is a really, really bad strategy. Okay, now I'm not saying you need to start a farm, but I am saying it matters where your food comes from. And I would deeply consider, if I were you, food independence. Why? I don't know. Read a few history books. Go back in time and see what's there. You're like, yeah, but that's not the modern world. That could never happen again. Really? Really? You're so sure? Well, even if it can't happen again, I'd rather eat food that doesn't have a bunch of chemicals sprayed on them. I'd rather eat food that I can just walk out the door and go eat. And frankly, one of the things that has really hurt our pocketbooks recently is the rising price of food. So it's economical. It's probably healthier. It gives you control over it. You don't have to depend on somebody else. And you know what? Working with your hands, getting out there in the dirt occasionally, it's not such a bad thing. Talk about grounding, literally, right? What about safety? I don't need to provide for my own safety. That's what we pay the police for. Well, first of all, you don't pay the police. Your taxes go into some pit, and some amount of that goes to policing and whatnot. Hopefully, it's spent wisely. But I don't know if you're like me, but I don't really want to wait for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes if I needed to call 911 and hope that some other man will come to my rescue. Now, that's not to say we don't all need help from time to time. Of course we do. But I think it makes a lot of sense to invest in your own safety. What does that mean? Good question. First of all, it depends on where you live. If you live in the middle of a city, there's a certain set of options that you're going to want to consider. If you live in a more suburban area or a more rural area, and this podcast is not going to get into all the details of that, but having spent a long time in the martial arts, training in self-defense, taking all the survival courses you can imagine from Tom Brown Jr. to the United States Army and everything in between, I have invested in that because it does matter to me. I don't want to have to say in the middle of the night when seconds count, I sure hope somebody else does something. I don't want to have to say, gosh, if the grocery store's closed down for a month or a few weeks, that my family's going to starve. We have nothing. This is a part of escape velocity. Okay, well, remember, finances have taken the place of security because with money, you can get everything you need. Do you really want to lock yourself up into that? No, what you want to do is use money to get to the escape. That's the point. It's the use of money in the pursuit of your freedom. Freedom in terms of food, freedom in terms of shelter, freedom in terms of safety. Yes, land. I think that's a great idea. Let's not be renters forever. Is that, again, an immoral situation? No. But I think ownership is vital. So part of financial escape velocity is going through these phases. First, I'm trading my time and my health for money, working for somebody else, slaving away. I am working to live. Then phase two, I'm trading value for money. I am living to work. Now, I am excited about this work. I'm creating value. I'm making a difference in the world. Of course, we know if you've read E-Myth, the E-Myth Revisited, that can quickly bog you down and you can become a slave all over again. So we don't want to stay there. We need to move into phase three, which is owning your source. Taking that profit that business is giving us and investing it in the areas that we've talked about for the purpose of independence, escape velocity. Okay, so that's a bunch of big ideas, and you probably thought through some of that or heard some of that. It's the beginning of the year. Set some goals for food independence. Set some goals for safety. Set some goals for where you live, owning land, etc. Set some goals for your chosen community. Who do you want to relate to? Who do you want to be around? Who feeds your soul? Who calls you up? If you're not finding that community, that's got to be a top priority because we know how much that affects our behavior and our health. Not only physical health, but mental health, our spiritual health. Okay. Now, the techniques for this, which we're going to get into in our next 2 points, are really basic but not obvious. Okay, they're not obvious. So when you hear these, don't think oh, I should have known that. No, these ones you kind of got to dig for. And that's why we're doing this, so we can dig in here together and learn. Cash flow, closed circle cash flow, and lotteries. All right, everybody knows what happens when people win the lottery. When somebody wins the lottery, let's say, I think the one that's right now, I heard a couple days ago, is $1 billion. Okay. What would happen on day one if you won the lottery? Well, let's just talk about that. The first thing is a large portion of that is going to get paid in taxes. I don't know the exact number, but let's call it 50%. So your $1 billion just went to 500 million on day one. What then do most people do with their $500 million? Well, because their name is publicized, because they won the lottery, you can bet a lot of people are finding out how to contact that person and let them know about this great deal. So let's say that they invest half of that, 250 million, in a bunch of different investment opportunities. Okay. Now, typically, the opportunities for investment that you see publicized are there because people with real money who know what to do would never buy those. So you can basically assure yourself, if you're hearing about it and it's advertised, it's a terrible idea. It just is, right? Okay, well, wait a minute. No. That's the way you should go, right? No, you see, there's an entire set of industries that are dedicated to separating wealthy people from their money. And then what happens is that the people who are separating the wealthy people from their money become wealthy, while the wealthy people become poor. Exactly. So most people have no idea how to invest that money or what to do with it, and probably it's going to just disappear into a bunch of great sounding ideas that really just make other people wealthy. Hey, I've got a yacht to sell you. Great. That's a hole in the ocean into which you pour your money, or whatever else. Okay. Maybe they go and pay off everybody's mortgages. Gosh, my uncle and my cousin and my friend and my mom and this person and that person, you know what? I'm just going to bless them. And people need cars, don't they need cars? Yeah, let's get a bunch of cars. Heck, let's buy a bunch of people Teslas. How many mortgages could you pay off? And how many cars could you buy? And how many college loans could you pay down to zero before that 250 million was gone? Not a lot. You'd be surprised how quickly that can dwindle. What is the problem relationally? Well, we know that when people get a lot of money, they have a lot of power. And when people see that power, they want things from you. You're treated differently. You're thought of differently. All of that creates incredible stress and tension. And if you don't do the thing that person wants, now all the, the bad blood starts coming out, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard the statistics are that most people within a year or two have lost all of the money. The suicide rate goes up. The divorce rate goes up. It's really not a good situation. And I'll tell you why. The reason is because they don't have a closed circle cash flow model. They have not answered that vital question, how much is enough? Well, I'm going to help you answer it right now. We're going to do it right now. So let's go back up here to Rockefeller. Remember, Rockefeller said, hey, just a little bit more. That's enough. Hey, William Blake says, you never know what is enough unless you know what is more than enough. Right? And I think that William Blake has got the edge and wisdom on this one. And I think while we can all say, well, yeah, but the Rockefellers, that's a super wealthy family. Was it a super peaceful family? Was there true and abiding happiness in that family? I don't know, but I do know that when you're around people who would say it's never enough, those are not happy people. Those are not people who are at peace. Those are not people who really are exuding the kind of life that we all hope to live. And certainly it's what we're talking about in this podcast. So how do we prevent that? How could you save someone who won the lottery? Well, I hope that your business, first of all, I hope your job gives you way more money than you need. And I hope you can apply what I'm about to talk about so that you can be happy and you can really dive in at that level and be building towards financial escape velocity. If you've already launched your own business and you're a business owner, the same thing. I hope the same thing. That there's just enough extra that it's giving you the means and the freedom to continue pursuing your highest calling. Bulletproof your business, but make sure your calling is unsinkable. Okay. And ultimately, that is done by defining 3 categories. Okay. The first category is called obligations. Okay. So if you're writing this down, category 1, obligations. Category 2, necessities. Okay. Category 2 is necessities, and category 3 is wants. All right. So let's define those. Obligations are things you are contractually bound to do. Okay, this is something where it would be impossible or very, very detrimental to get out of or not do. Maybe like a mortgage. Okay, you could think of getting out of obligations would be like filing bankruptcy, right? It has a huge impact on you, not only financially, but relationally and reputationally. Okay, so obligations are things we have generally signed a piece of paper and we must do it. That is a category of expenses. Okay. The next category would be necessities. These are things that we could stop doing, but it would really hamper our ability to create value, our ability to do what we have to do. Okay. What would a necessity be? Well, some necessities could be certain kinds of machines for the business that you run, certain types of marketing, where you could cut back on that or eliminate that. It would probably hurt the business, but you don't have to do it. Payroll, that's an obligation. You have to do it. All right. So obligations are our have-tos. Necessities are our very important things. They are necessary, but they're not obligations. And then the third category is wants. These are things that are important to me, but I'm not sure I'm going to get an ROI on it. So I may want to spend some money on this to find out. This is something that looks good. Maybe other people have implemented this and it sounds like a good thing, but I don't know for sure. So we're talking about definites in the obligations. We are talking about necessities in the necessities. I really do need them, but I have some discretion. And then in the wants, we're talking about basically unconfirmed necessities. All right. Great, Eric. What does that do? All right. Here's the magic formula. I want you to imagine each of the three of these in a 3-tiered fountain. Okay. You go to the mall or a university or someplace that has a fountain outside, and you've got a big basin at the bottom. Then you've got a smaller basin in the middle, and then you've got the smallest at the top, and that's the spout where the water comes out. The water is money. Okay. And if the first basin at the top holds $100, and then the second basin holds a little bit more, and the third basin a little bit more, this is how we're managing. Now, think of it from a physics standpoint. The water doesn't go from the first basin to the second basin until the first basin is what? Full. Okay. The water comes out that little spout at the top and it fills up the first basin. If the water keeps coming out the spout and the basin gets totally full, it will then overflow. And then it will do what? It will fill up the second basin. Okay. And if that basin eventually gets totally full, it will overflow and that will fill up the third basin. Okay, this is our categories of obligations. If I don't have enough money coming in to meet our obligations, I can't pay for any necessities or any wants, period. So write out your obligations and find that number. It's $10,000 a month. It's $100,000 a month. What are my obligations? Okay. When income comes in that begins to exceed your obligations, you can pay for necessities. Okay, or you can add new obligations. Yeah, that make your business run better, that make it more efficient, that make it more profitable. Okay, this is how we grow. As the money comes in, the obligations get paid. When there's leftover, the necessities gets paid. When the necessities are paid and it gets to that third basin called the wants, I want you to consider those in categories and percentages. Let's say 10% savings, 10% charity, 15% rainy day fund, 8% investments, maybe real estate or stocks or whatever else it is, right? I want you to take that bottom basin of unconfirmed necessities that we're calling wants and create your categories by percentage. Obviously, those categories need to total 100%. Now, that doesn't sound all that amazing, does it? But let me ask you a cool question. If I put $1 billion into this system, would there be any unspent money? No, there wouldn't. Unspent money, unaccounted for money, money that has not been purposed is deadly. It will hurt your relationships. It will hurt your sleep. It will hurt your time management. It will hurt your focus. It will hurt everything. It will make you love it. And that is the root of all kinds of evil. That's how it works. If $1 billion came in the top and you have $100,000 of obligations, then you have $1 billion minus 100,000. So that remainder flows over to your necessities. If your necessities are $80,000, then that remainder flows over to your wants, which are percentages, which cannot be overflowed. 10% to charity, 10% to savings, 15% to your rainy day fund, 8% to investments, 7% to whatever. Okay, whatever. That's it. That is the key to financial escape velocity because you have now defined how much is enough. Well, what if I want to go and add more obligations? Okay, now that's a question of the revenue that's coming in. And does it match your vision? Does it match your goals and your KPIs? You see, if it doesn't fit your vision, meaning in a business sense, that ideal customer journey, if it doesn't create value for your customer that's tangible and proven, you shouldn't add it on as an obligation. But if it does, then your obligations may grow. But there's no unspent money. If your obligations grow, you may have to cut back on some of your necessities until those obligations produce a return on investment, and now you can fulfill these necessities in that second level. But you can see, though, that every dollar in is a dollar spent. So why would I want to have that level of accountability for my money? Because unaccountable money is toxic. And that's exactly what happens to people when they win the lottery. They get a ton of unaccounted money. It is unpurposed. It has not been aimed at a purpose. And when we do not have a purpose for something, when we don't discern and understand the purpose of a thing, then we will abuse it. Think about that. If you don't know the purpose of something, you won't know how to use it. If you give a cell phone to a caveman, they're not going to know what the purpose is. So what are they going to do with it? Use it as a hammer. They're abusing it. If you have not purposed money, it will abuse you and you will abuse it. This is a spiritual principle you have got to understand to get free. Financial escape velocity is not about having a lot of money. It is about having a system like what we're talking about. Okay, and this is how we define how much is enough. So take it, Rockefeller. All right, last idea, and we're going to land the plane here. You guys have gone on a good journey today, right? This is a good workout. This is it. We got to get sweaty, and we got to choose our hard, and we're getting some hard work right now. Last idea here: happiness is a myth, and midday walks are reality. I've heard it said that if you can take a walk at any time during the day, you're truly free. If you just get up, go for an hour-long walk anytime you want to, that's a good measure of freedom. I don't know that I totally agree with that, but I mostly agree with it. And it's also good stress relief and good for you. I think ultimately defining happiness in the context of financial escape velocity is really going to help you. It certainly has helped me. So this is what I found. I have found this definition of happiness to be quite useful. Happiness is when you find $20 in your coat pocket that you forgot about. Happiness is that surprise. It is an unexpected good thing. And I feel happy. Oh, that's cool. Look at that. $20. That's awesome. Okay. Unexpected good thing equals happiness. What would then happen if you were to chase happiness? You would be very unhappy because by definition, these are random good events that we typically don't have much control over. And trying to be in control of the uncontrollable is a great way to be miserable. Said another way, it means you don't know how much is enough. Okay, happiness. All right, what about satisfaction? Satisfaction is different. Satisfaction is when you make a plan and you achieve the result. That's a different kind of feeling, isn't it? Okay, the happiness feeling is like, woo, that's kind of cool. Kind of comes on you, kind of quick, and kind of goes away quick too, right? But satisfaction, that's different. I worked hard for this, and I achieved this. You guys may have heard a couple of podcasts ago about me coming in last place in a 50-mile ultra marathon, and I couldn't have been happier. Why? Man, I worked for 4 years to do that. It took me 4 years, not to run 50 miles, but to do a successful race. The race was in a single day, 13 hours, and my finish time was 12 hours and 57 minutes and change. But I was so satisfied. I actually wasn't very happy because my legs felt like, well, a total disaster, and it was very, very difficult in all the ways you'd imagine. But satisfaction, that was really something. All right, what about contentment then? Happiness, satisfaction, contentment. If happiness is a myth and we're trying to chase it all the time, catching happiness is a myth. That's probably a better way to say it. What about the true escape? Yes, happiness, we want that. But satisfaction. but most of all, contentment. Contentment means my circumstances don't control my peace. I may have worked very, very hard, and it did not work out. I don't have any happiness. I don't have any satisfaction. But if I am on the path of mastery, both personal and spiritual, business mastery, thinking mastery, I can find contentment. Why? Because I've learned how much is enough. Gosh, Eric, you did that JFK 50 3 times and you didn't finish. How in the world could you be content with that? By telling myself that there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of people who will never run a single mile. Maybe they're crippled in some way, they're disabled in some way, they just don't have the time to train or whatever the circumstance might be. They're just never going to have the privilege of spending that time and energy and effort on a race. You see, I can be content thinking about my great uncle who was in a concentration camp in World War II. Yeah, no freedom, no ability to do anything. He did survive, which is amazing. But ultimately, all it takes is just a little perspective to ask, who would feel that this is the greatest thing in the world if they could even do one part of it, much less all of it? And you think about that, oh, you're stuck in traffic. Yeah, you're stuck in traffic in your Mercedes, in your Range Rover, in your brand new F-150. Life is really tough. All it takes is a little perspective to go, that misery you're feeling is somebody else's heaven. That perspective is how we gain contentment. And I think it is how we actually exist fully in the present moment. When we are occupied with the future and fears or regrets and anxieties about the past, we're not really here. We're not really living. And that too is a type of slavery. That is part of the time debt trap, is that it never allows us to be really here. So, financial escape velocity. What is that? It is using money to get to a level of maturity and freedom. That does what? What's the purpose, Eric? Why even do all this? I mean, it sounds great. You could go on vacation at the Amalfi Coast, or you could have an airplane and this and that. Is it for that? No, it's not. It's for the purpose of setting other people free. Guys, I hope this podcast has been helpful to you. I hope you have an absolutely awesome 2025. I hope this is a great start to it. Rate us, review us, stars, thumbs, all the things. It helps our content rise to the top. Share it with some friends. Hope it's been a blessing, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.